I still have that little folded email in my wallet. Sometimes, on rough days, I take it out and run my thumb across the creases. It's not about the £6,000 anymore. It's about the reminder that even when someone builds a cage around you, even when they watch from the shadows and think they own every corner of your life, there's always a gap in the bars. And sometimes all it takes is 11 letters you never even send to step through that gap and stand up straight again. So if you're listening to this right now and you feel small, remember this story. Remember that the quietest weapon can be the sharpest. Remember that power only keeps what you let it keep. And remember that somewhere out there, a man still flinches every single time he opens a remote desktop window at night. The screen's been clean for years. But he knows. And I know. And that's enough. I still remember the exact day Mark stopped coming into the office. It was late March 2020. The world was shutting down, and Mark, our owner, our boss, our supposed fearless leader, sent one company-wide email that simply said, "I'll be managing everything remotely from now on. Permanently." That was it. No goodbye. No, thank you for holding the fort. Just gone. At first we thought it was temporary. Then weeks turned into months. Then months turned into 3 full years. The office used to feel alive. You'd hear Mark's footsteps thundering down the hallway, his loud laugh booming from the boardroom, the occasional slammed door when a client pissed him off. Now, silence. Just the low hum of fluorescent lights and the faint clicking of keyboards. We became ghosts working for a ghost. Mark's only form of communication became email. And not normal emails. We're talking 2 a.m. rants written in all caps, single-sentence demands, and the most passive-aggressive, per my last email chains you've ever seen. He'd CC the entire company just to shame one person. The only human being he ever actually spoke to was Sarah, our office manager. Sarah was in her mid-50s, calm as a lake, and somehow the only person Mark hadn't managed to scare off yet. She became our translator, our shield, our therapist. Every time Mark unloaded on her in one of his hour-long phone tantrums, she'd hang up, walk straight to the kitchenette, and mouth the words, "You lot are not going to believe this one." We'd crowd around the kettle like it was a campfire, and Sarah would spill every detail. "He says we're all lazy. He says the numbers are down because we're on Facebook. He says he's thinking about installing cameras." We'd groan, roll our eyes, laugh it off. Because what else could we do? He was 200 miles away, locked in his home office fortress. He couldn't see us. He couldn't hear us. We were safe. Or so we thought. Then came the day everything changed. I was in the break room grabbing my sad ham sandwich when Sarah appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, face pale. She waited until the others joined us, then shut the door. "Mark knows we've been online shopping," she said quietly. "He knows someone watched the World Cup highlights last week. He knows Jen's been on maternity clothes sites." We all froze. Jen actually dropped her mug. It shattered on the tile like a gunshot. "How?" I asked. My voice sounded smaller than I meant it to. Sarah took a slow breath. "He's been logging into our computers after we leave. Every night. He remote accesses every single machine, opens the browsers, and reads the history. He's been doing it for months." The room went dead silent. I felt it in my stomach first, this cold, slimy wave of violation. My skin prickled like someone had walked over my grave. He wasn't just absent. He was watching us. In the dark. Alone. Scrolling through our private moments like some creepy digital voyeur. That night I barely slept. I kept picturing him, sitting in his pajamas at 1 a.m., clicking through my Google searches. Did he see the birthday gift I bought my mom? The medical symptom I looked up when I was scared? The stupid memes I clicked on when I needed a 30-second break from his endless demands? It wasn't illegal. They were his computers. His network. His company. But it felt wrong. It felt like he'd been reading my diary and pretending he hadn't. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, heart pounding with this weird mix of rage and powerlessness. I wanted to scream. I wanted to quit. I wanted to drive to his house and confront him. But I also needed the job. Rent doesn't pay itself. So I did what any rational person does at 3 a.m. when they're spiraling. I started planning. The next morning I walked into the office like a man carrying nitroglycerin in his chest. Everything looked the same. The chipped paint on the radiator, the flickering tube light above Jen's desk, the faint smell of burnt coffee. But it all felt contaminated now. Every screen glowed with the knowledge that Mark's eyes had been there hours earlier, pouring through our digital footprints like a raccoon in a dumpster. I sat down, logged in, and just stared at the monitor. The cursor blinked at me. Innocent. Waiting. I suddenly hated that cursor. Sarah caught my eye from across the room and gave me the tiniest shake of her head. Don't do anything stupid. But stupid was already percolating. For the first 2 weeks after the revelation, we all became paranoid monks. We cleared histories religiously. We used incognito mode like it was holy water. Someone even stuck a post-it over their webcam that read "Mark is watching" in Sharpie. We laughed when we stuck it up, but nobody took it down. Mark, of course, noticed the sudden cleanliness. The emails started coming. Subject: productivity concerns body. I've noticed browsing activity has dropped to almost zero. Good. Keep it that way. Subject: random checks body. Just a reminder that all company equipment is subject to monitoring at any time. Each one landed like a slap. He was taunting us. He knew that we knew. And he wanted us to feel the power imbalance every single day. I started having this recurring fantasy at night. I'd imagine printing out his smug little emails, driving to his house, I still had his address from the old Christmas card list, and nailing them to his front door like Martin Luther with a grudge. I'd stand there in the rain while he opened the door in his bathrobe, and I'd just say, "Feel watched now, mate?" I never did it, obviously. But the fantasy kept me sane. Meanwhile, the pay rise cycle came around. Mark had always done them in March. Except this year. Nothing. No email. No announcement. Radio silence. Sarah eventually called him. I was in the room when she put him on speaker. She'd stopped caring about professionalism at this point. "Yeah, the raises are on hold," he said, voice nasal and distant, like he was chewing on something. "Numbers aren't where I want them. People need to earn it." Sarah glanced at us, rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd fall out, and said, "Right. Understood. Mark. We'll keep earning it." Click. Line dead. That was the moment the rage went from simmering to boiling. I'd been at the company 6 years. 6. Loyal through the pandemic, through the software crash of 21 that had me working 3 a.m. shifts to save client data, through every single one of his tantrums. And now I was being punished because I looked at a pair of shoes on Amazon for 45 seconds. Something inside me snapped, but quietly, like ice cracking under snow. I didn't scream. I didn't slam my keyboard. I just decided. If he wanted to play voyeur, I was going to give him a show he'd never forget. But I had to be smart. No outright war. No resignation letter full of swears. I needed something surgical. Something that would make him feel exactly what we'd been feeling for months. Small, exposed, and completely out of control. For 3 nights I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook like some kind of deranged screenplay writer. Option 1. Flood the history with porn. Too obvious. HR nightmare. Possible firing. Option 2. Search for unionizing information. Satisfying, but again, fireable. Option 3. Pretend to be having a mental breakdown. Too dark. And I actually liked my coworkers. Then, on night 4 I had it. The idea was so beautifully petty, so perfectly calibrated, that I physically shivered when it clicked. I was going to make him think I was job hunting. Aggressively. And I was going to leave him a message so raw, so personal, that he'd have to acknowledge he'd seen it. But I needed to build it slowly. I needed him to feel the dread creeping up on him over hours. Because if I just left the insult on day 1, he could pretend he never saw it. Deny it. Laugh it off. No. I wanted him to stew. I wanted him to refresh the remote connection every 10 minutes, watching my browser history fill up like a horror movie bloodbath. I wanted him to realize he'd created this monster. And I was going to enjoy every single second. Monday, 8:47 a.m. I arrived early on purpose. The office was still half empty, the aircon humming like a sleeping animal. I hung my coat, made a coffee I had no intention of drinking, and sat down. Then I began. First search, 9:02 a.m. Average salary, my exact job title. Our City, 2024, second, 9:04. Job title, jobs near me paying 20% more. I kept the rhythm slow. Deliberate. Like a sniper breathing between shots. 9:12, how to negotiate a pay rise when your boss is difficult. 9:19, signs it's time to leave your job. 9:27, quiet quitting versus actually quitting. 9:34, opened Indeed, filtered for my role, salary £10,000 above mine, clicked apply easy on 3 postings even though I never uploaded a CV. Every click felt like dropping a pebble into still water. I could almost hear the ripples traveling 200 miles north to Mark's spare bedroom. At 10:03 I went to the kitchenette, stretched, chatted with Jen about the weather. Gave him time to wonder if I was done. Then I came back and turned the heat up. 10:17, how much notice period is enforceable UK? 10:25. Can my boss stop me taking holiday payout when I leave? 10:31. References when you hate your manager. I watched the clock like a bomber pilot. I wanted the history to look like someone spiraling, someone who had finally cracked. Lunch break, I left the browser open on a job listing titled, Urgent, Senior, my role. £15,000 above market rate, start ASAP. Screen brightness maxed. Cursor blinking in the salary box. I ate my sandwich outside in the car park so he'd have a full 30 minutes of staring at that page. When I came back I went nuclear but slow nuclear. 1:14 p.m. How to explain being fired for calling boss a C**NT in an exit interview. I actually laughed out loud typing that one. Jen looked over, saw my screen, and whispered, "Oh my God, you're doing it, aren't you?" I just winked. 1:27, Worst Bosses Reddit, 1:38. Opened a thread titled, My boss monitors our PCs at night, what can I do? 1:45, upvoted every single comment that said, leave or make his life hell. 2:03, garden leave payout calculator, 2:11. Is it illegal to record my boss being a prick? 2:19, how to make my manager's life hell without breaking the law. I left that tab open for 12 whole minutes before closing it with a chuckle. Plausible deniability. Every minute I pictured him. Mark in his grey hoodie, Diet Coke going flat beside him, refreshing the remote session again and again, watching the history bloom like cancer cells. I pictured his jaw tightening, his breathing getting shallow, the dawning realization that one of his loyal employees was not just looking, but planning. And worse, planning while openly contemptuous. At 3:30 I took a toilet break just to drag it out. Back at my desk I opened Glassdoor and left a half-written review. Company name filled in. 1 star selected. In the title box I typed, owner is a paranoid little man who... I left the cursor flashing mid-sentence. 4:02 p.m. Searched, cost of living crisis versus staying in a toxic job, 4:17. Best headhunters for my industry. 4:29. Opened my own company's LinkedIn page and hovered over the Open to Work banner for a full 5 minutes without clicking it. The threat was enough. 4:45. The office was winding down. People grabbing coats. I could feel their eyes on me, some nervous, some delighted. Sarah just shook her head with the biggest grin I'd ever seen on her. I stood up, stretched, and walked to the printer like nothing was happening. Gave him time to think I was leaving the job hunt tabs open by accident. Then, at 4:52, with the office almost empty, I did it. I opened a fresh tab, clicked in the Google search bar, and typed, letter by slow letter, so the autocomplete had time to squirm. WHYISMYBOSSAC***T, full word. No asterisks. No mercy. I let it sit there for a count of 10. The screen glowed white and venomous. I felt my pulse in my throat. My palms were slick. This was the point of no return. I did not press enter. I didn't need to. The suggestion bar underneath filled with every variation known to man, each one more glorious than the last. I left the tab active. Front and center. Maximized. Then I shut the monitor off, grabbed my bag, and walked out without looking back. The office door clicked shut behind me like the hammer of a gun. As I walked to my car, my legs were trembling, not from fear, but from pure electric adrenaline. It felt like the first time I ever stole anything as a kid, except this time I was stealing something far more valuable. His peace of mind. That night I didn't sleep either. But this time it wasn't rage keeping me awake. It was anticipation. I kept checking my phone, half expecting a screaming phone call that would never come, because Mark was a coward who only fought by email. I pictured him logging in at 8 p.m. like clockwork. Opening my machine. Seeing the job boards. The salary calculators. The half-written Glassdoor massacre. And then, that search bar. White background. Black letters. Unblinking. I pictured his stomach dropping through the floor. I pictured him zooming in on the screen to make sure he'd read it right. I pictured him closing the tab quickly, then reopening it, because the human brain is a masochist. I pictured him sitting there in the dark for a very, very long time. Tuesday passed in a strange, suspended hush. No emails. No emergency all hands. Nothing. Just the usual drip of passive-aggressive reminders about printer toner levels. I started to wonder if I'd miscalculated. Maybe he'd missed it. Maybe he'd logged into someone else's machine first and never got to mine. Maybe he was building a case to fire me and I'd just handed him the bullet. By Wednesday lunchtime I was twitchy. My leg bounced under the desk like a sewing machine needle. Then, at 14:17 exactly, the email arrived. Subject line, private, for your eyes only from, Mark to me, not CC to anyone, thank God, body. Hi. After reviewing recent performance metrics and taking into account market adjustments, I've decided to increase your salary by £6,000 per annum, backdated to the beginning of this month. The extra will appear in this month's payroll. Please let me know if you have any questions. Regards, Mark. No, well done. No, great work lately. No explanation. Just £6,000 dropped into my account like a ransom payment. I stared at the screen so long my eyes watered. Then I let out this involuntary, strangled laugh that made Jen drop her stapler. Sarah appeared at my shoulder in seconds. I tilted the monitor toward her. She read it once, read it again, and whispered a single word that rhymed with grunting duck. Within 5 minutes the entire office knew. We didn't cheer. We didn't high-five. We just sat there in stunned, delicious silence, the kind that comes after a bomb goes off and you realize you're still alive. Mark never mentioned it again. Not once. Not the search bar. Not the job boards. Not the half-written Glassdoor review. Nothing. But the change was immediate and unmistakable. The 2 a.m. rant emails stopped cold. The random checks, reminders vanished. He started saying, please, and thank you, for the first time in 3 years. Sarah told us later that when she eventually asked him casually over the phone why he'd given me the raise, his exact words were, I think he's under a lot of pressure at the moment. Better to keep him happy. He sounded, she said, like a man who'd stared into the abyss and the abyss had called him a very specific name. I printed the email, folded it into a tiny square, and kept it in my wallet for months like a war medal. And yes, from that day on, whenever I went on Amazon or Reddit or whatever, I cleared my history religiously. Not because I was scared anymore, but because the game had changed. He knew I knew he was watching. I knew he knew I could make his life uncomfortable anytime I felt like it. We had achieved the workplace equivalent of mutually assured destruction, all thanks to one unpressed enter key. A couple of months later, Jen got pregnant again and needed extra time off for appointments. Mark approved it without a single question. 6 months after that, Sarah asked for a company car allowance she'd been requesting for 8 years. Approved. Same day. One by one, quietly, things started to improve for all of us. No one ever left that search bar message again. We didn't need to. The sword was hanging over his head now, invisible and permanent. Sometimes the smallest acts of defiance create the biggest ripples. I never drove to his house. I never shouted. I never even spoke to him directly about it. I just typed 11 letters into a search bar and took back the power he'd been stealing from us every single night. So yeah, it was petty. Ridiculously, childishly petty. But for the first time in 3 years, I walked into that office feeling tall. Because I'd proven something to myself that no salary can ever buy. Even when someone holds every card, even when they watch you in the dark, even when they think they've made you small, one perfectly timed act of quiet rebellion can remind them that you're still human. And humans bite back if you've ever sat at your desk, feeling eyes on the back of your neck, when no one else was in the room. If you've ever read an email that made your stomach knot, and realized the person sending it thinks they own you. If you've ever swallowed rage so many times, it started tasting like blood in your mouth. Stay with me. Because in the next hour, I'm going to hand you the exact moment someone took that power back. Without raising their voice. Without writing a resignation letter. Without ever leaving their chair. 1 search bar. 11 letters. And everything changed. Breathe in. You're safe here.